Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Yasmin Choudhury, and I can't believe how nervous I am, but I've been promising to do this for a long time. So, firstly, welcome to Lovedesh 10 Plus Files. I'm Yasmin Choudhury. The time is now 10:30 GMT, and it is, I believe, the Sunday, the 30th of January 2022. And I kick off with the introduction to my memoirs called the Lovedesh 10 Plus Files. I firstly want to say that I'm doing it stream of consciousness and I am registered disabled. I have an invisible disability and I've taken the courage to come forward because at the age of 51, I think my story needs to be told. I am the chief executive of Lovedesh, and today you're going to be introduced to the introduction to my memoirs. It's scene setting, all right? And I think that my story is very complex, that even some of the most formidable journalists in the world have actually expressed their concern as to how convoluted and complicated it is, and how there is a story, but that unfortunately, between the complexity and also the fear of getting defamation claims, many journalists are very, very scared about writing about me, what I've seen, what I've witnessed. So firstly, I'm 51. I live in London. I want to say a big thank you to my TikTok fam who are behind the scenes championing me on. But I want you to know that it's taken me a lifetime to get to this stage. I do identify as Muslim. My heritage is from Bangladesh. Those of you who don't know where Bangladesh is, it's actually a country next to India on the right. It got its independence in 1970, or was it 71? And my parents came from that country, in particular from a region called Sylhet. It's a bit like Wales, what Wales is to England, in the sense of they don't have their own democratic or governance, but they do have their own dialect, their own culture, and that's in the northeast of Bangladesh today. So today is the introduction to Lovedesh 10 Plus Files. So as I keep repeating, excuse me if I keep repeating myself, and remember that I'm going to set down some rules firstly, okay, before I start with the introduction, which will be all about scene setting and introducing you to characters and slowly how you can go about finding and putting sense to all of this complicated strands that I plan to bring together, as between now and certainly Valentine's Day, every night at 9 p.m. you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on my Instagram, and you can find me on Twitter. And if any of you need to find my social media links, you can go to www.yasminchoudhury.com and all my social media icons are there. So that's the first thing. Second, because I'm registered disabled, I'm doing stream of consciousness. When I was a young girl, I came across the Irish novelist, author James Joyce, and I was shocked when I opened up one of his books. And he was so brave because he wrote as he thought. And it actually is an art form, but not many people can do it. So I am pitching forward and saying that at the age of 51, because of my disability, if I was to sit and try and write it, I would get triggered, I would get ill, I would get confused, and I would never probably get my memoirs out there. So that's another thing. It's stream of consciousness. Basically, me, okay, anyone who's actually ever read Harry Potter books, it's almost like you're fly on the wall as I extract. Do you remember what it's called? Maybe someone can leave a comment on my YouTube. It's like that Harry Potter where Dumbledore gets a strand of thought and we're looking at it and going back in time, and that's the feel and pace. Because I am 51, I'm Generation X, I was born before the internet, and so my way of life and what I grew up in is going to be radically different to many of the modern generation today. But it's more different because I'm dealing with the fact that being 51 today, going back in time to a time when there was no internet, I was also the daughter of a first generation immigrant, and having to traverse and find our way through life, be it at home, at school, in the workplace. There was nobody and often nothing to support us. And often, of course, many of the children of the first generation immigrants, in particular from South Asia, be it Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, because many of the families had very strict tribalistic ideas about religion and rituals, we were caught forever between a rock and a hard place. So that's the scene setting. A couple of rules. When I go live, I allow anyone who actually is part of my TikTok fam or community to be able to hang around for 30 minutes later for any clarifying questions and answers. What I don't plan to do is, if you do leave a comment and a question, please don't expect me to answer it immediately. I will save it and try and bring it forward to the next episode. Today's episode, though, without further ado, is an introduction. And the introduction really is to do some scene setting. And I think the first thing I need to talk about is my family and the kind of family and how I was first born. And I want you to remember that being born as a twin, now I am a fraternal twin. What that means is I'm not identical. And when I was born, I was the first set of twins in my mother's and father's side of the family. The problem I had was that we were in the middle. So I'm going to slowly try and paint a picture, and slowly I will talk about my beloved father, who arrived into the UK in the late 1950s from Bangladesh, having run away out in frustration from his elder brothers, because now I want to tell you and introduce you to one of the first main characters in my memoirs. And if I close my eyes, sometimes it's because I need for you to understand it can be very painful for somebody with PTSD, and we will cover that, I promise you. But I'm going back into my mind, into my memories, and just thinking about my father. Just thinking about my father is something that is very painful for me to do. But my father, he was born in the 1940s in a village called Biani Bazar, Alinogar, Biani Bazar. Hundreds of years ago, my ancestral paternal family were Hindus. Today, this family is very powerful and we are known as very rich landowners. But my father ran away in the 1950s because, as a young man, when he was about 20, his elder brothers were often using him as an errand boy. And I always remember why he became so obsessed with education, and why, even though, and I'll tell you, the children he had 4 girls and 1 boy. You had girl, my eldest sister. Then you had the twins, me and my twin sister. Then you had my brother. Then you had my sister. But I'll come on to them in a bit. Let's just focus on my father. He was called Makhon. That stands for butter. I know it's crazy, but at some point, my father told me that his mother affectionately decided to kind of like name her sons after favorite things that she enjoyed. So to her, and I now realize many decades later why it makes sense, because back then, precious food, right? Food was what got you to live. So it's crazy. But my dad, although his proper name was Abdul Muquith Choudhury, every brother had the name Abdul. Then they would have a Islamic name. Then they had the Choudhury. So, for example, we had Abdul Mannan Choudhury, my uncle, Abdul Sattar Choudhury, but my father was Abdul Muquith. And I will come and say and remind you that many Muslim families will often take the 99 names of Allah and actually name their sons, especially their sons, because you don't get daughters, I believe, after one of the 99 names. So it's things like Malik, Rahman, Rahim, Muqith, Sattar, all very beautiful translations. Okay. Now I will try and remind myself. I don't know if someone in my TikTok fam could go and research, and I might have a quick glance to tell you what Muqith means. But he was named Butter. And at a very young age, my father lost his father. And you'll see that my memoirs are talking about the trauma of often economic fragility, deprivation, widows and how that impacts the family. But in the Sylheti culture, back in the 1940s, the death of a father was the equivalent of a death of a family. Now, you've got to remember, hundreds of years ago, my family were Hindu, but in the 1940s, even though it's taken me a lifetime to understand that Islam gave so many rights and protects women, in 1940s, if I take you back and imagine a rural village, the houses are made with thatched straw, mud huts. Inside is a very basic cooking station, and they would be cooking with wood fire. There would be the daily pounding and smashing of spices, and the idea is the husband would work and bring home the groceries, because in the 1940s there were no things as shops. Women were kept at home, and their duty was solely to be a wife and be a good mother. There was also no contraceptive. So this is why first generation immigrants had generational trauma themselves, like my father, because both my mother and father had siblings who numbered around 15. Now, can you imagine the chaos, the bedlam, the entire just craziness of being raised in a rural village? But here's the interesting thing. Both my mother and father lost their fathers at a young age. And I do often wonder, had my father or mother had loving parents, hadn't been at the mercy of being stripped financially, then perhaps my own future, my life, my experience of a family who went sour on me wouldn't have happened. Because often, if you look to the adult, you look to the child, you look to the parents. Anyway, 1940s, my brother, I think he told me he was about 4 or 5 when his father died. And the problem about his father is that somehow he was not altogether there. I don't know if he had learning difficulties, and my uncles and my father would get very sensitive because there were stories about how apparently he would have children, but then often he could be found playing tiddlywinks, okay? The Bengali version of tiddlywinks. And I don't know how much of that is true. The people who knew my grandfather are dying out, okay? There is one gentleman called Sikandar. I'm waiting to get to him because he always tells me stories of growing up around the same age as my father. He was younger than my father. But my dad's family were left in a very terrible financial situation, because when my grandfather paternal died, it was left to my father's elder brothers. And this is part of the memoirs because it shaped the relationship that I have today with my uncles and the children of my uncles, who had to run and bring home the food and the income to feed. And it probably does make sense why in the 1950s, the 3 elder uncles, okay, who all my life had formidable reputations, who had a temper, who were extremely toxic, who were horrific to their wives, who the stories I heard, and not just heard, I saw, would smash the plates of rice if it wasn't cooked to perfection. They'd been absolutely adulated and adored by my grandmother, who would go clutching and crying and saying, "Oh, my son, you are the one who will actually feed me in my old age. You will bring the cup of water to my dead lips." Okay, it's very dramatic. It's very, very emotional. I want to come to emotion as well in the introduction. People don't realize, but actually, South Asian men are grown up in a community and family where people are openly crying, screaming. It is not the English way of life. It is a complete, and I'm reminded of the book I read by Laurie Lee. No, it wasn't Laurie Lee. It's called, oh God, what's that book I studied? It was absolutely The Go-Between by L.P. Hartley. No, Go-Between, that's right. There is a book called The Go-Between, and it opens with this famous line, "The past is another country. The past is another country." And I've always held on to that, because the past is another country. It's almost like you have to get a passport, prepare yourself, and you get culture shock. Well, When I think about the way my father was brought up, I feel really sad for him, his brothers, the young teenage men who had to suddenly become, in a way, father, husband figure of sorts to their mother, who actually was left, are you ready, with 15 children, of which I think 4 or 5 were girls and the rest were all boys. And all of them reached adulthood. And I must say, the 3 elder brothers, and let's call it, there was Borosasa, who is elderly uncle. And at time, you'll have to go to, I think it's the lovedesh.com website where I will start, and my podcast, where I will start giving family trees. So there was about, I think, 10 brothers and 5 sisters, but the elder 3 brothers, okay, because let's just focus. It's really weird. It's really funny, but in societies like my father's, who were grown and brought up in Bangladesh, your position in your family came not where you were born, it's where you are irrespective with your brothers. So let me give you an example. While there were girls, all people would ask is, how many brothers are you? And which number are you? And I believe my father would have been 4th or 5th. Don't quote me on that, because when I do the family tree, with the help of some people, I will make it clear. But ahead of my father, was my eldest uncle. He was a tailor. So he was very humble, very gentle, and he used to often be ridiculed, but they managed to find him. And this is where I'm going to talk about dark skin. Okay, the obsession with dark skin. Every single one of my uncles married someone with very light white skin, because some of my uncles were born really dark. My grandmother, I believe, was very, very fair, but my grandfather was very dark, I believe. All I know is that my eldest uncle, who was a tailor, and I've got a picture of him, okay, he was very gentle, and whenever he would walk and come to visit us in Bangladesh, he would walk for miles everywhere. He refused to try and not get into a car. And he would always do this, because he was very elderly and frail. So when I met him, I think he was in his 70s. So can you imagine the age gap? I think he was probably, 25 when my father was 4 years old. And I think he was helping to provide for the family for so long. But what he did was then to sponsor the other next 2 brothers into education. So what you then have is the next 2 brothers, the uncles, who I would turn around and say are the educated uncles, the only ones to get an education. And I want to now talk about my beloved, okay, Motin uncle. But let's go to no, sorry, there were 3 of them. So we had Aziz Sasa, and then we had Motin Sasa, uncle, and then we had Shuna Sasa. Okay, so do you remember I said that my grandmother gave names? One of my uncles was called Gold. Honestly, I think she probably sat down one day, and every time she had a baby, she's like, "Ooh, what's the thing I really want but I can't have, or I struggle to get?" So she's like, "I'm going to name this son Gold." It's like, "Gold, always remember your whatever." You know that Spandau ballet song. But she named, what did she name the other one? The eldest one, Shunasasa. No, he was just Boro. So there was elder uncle. Then there was Shunasasa, golden boy. Then there was what did she call Sator? I don't know what she called him, but and then you had Motin uncle. Okay, Motin uncle. All right. Now, Martin Uncle ended up becoming so fluent on English. You should see, when I went to Bangladesh, he would forever be taking out his photographs and showing me letters where he had written to the royal family. He had got himself educated, and he, I think, did a degree, but he was very clever, very smart, very entrepreneurial. Shuna, Golden Ankle, was more in the village, but working to try and build up their reserves of land. So it's a bit like the brown version of Succession, okay? But they're starting from scratch, these brothers. So what you had is number 1, 2, 3, 4 brothers. They were deemed the elders. What they did is use the rest of the younger brothers as errand boys. And why I'm telling you this long story is it's an introduction to scene setting in the 1940s. War had just been over, and my father was born into a Silati Muslim family. Okay. And as he arrived into the world by the age of 4, he lost his father, which then put an exacerbated pressure on the elder brothers, okay, to start rapidly trying to accumulate wealth and survive. Okay. Now, when they accumulated wealth, they began to do projects in engineering or build bridges, or I think they might have had, for example, the eldest uncle who was a tailor helping with his business. The problem my father had is as he became quite, and he was quite tall, but some of my uncles were really tall. Like, for example, one of my uncles, the Bari uncle, because there's about 8 of them, he was about 5'11", and they were very, very handsome. And this is what I've been going and digging as to how my father, who was born into a poor, fatherless family, okay, with a mother, suddenly made it. And why is it that they all married really well? I'll tell you why they married well. Because as much as they may have lost the money and didn't have cash flow, apparently you could trace my generations hundreds of years back, and the village really respected my family. That is why, even to this day, my cousins or my father, people would not sit in front of my family. They will not sit in front of me, even though I don't care. I don't believe in stuff like that. So although my grandfather died and leaving his children of 15 behind, he had spanking adult sons, some of whom apparently were so handsome they looked like Bollywood actors. Okay. And what you've got to remember is in those days, having sons was everything. Having sons could also navigate your way into helping your daughters get married off, because the sons without a father are the next best thing to have. In that society in the 1940s, if you were a widowed woman with just girls, basically you were fucked, no joke. It doesn't matter what Islam was saying, because I'll come to that. You've got to understand what Islam says and what Muslims back in those era and even today do in that region are two totally different things. So there's my father. He's running errands now. He's a young lad. I went and interviewed one of my father's friends who came to London with him, and he said your father was very handsome, very charming. He actually could just dazzle people. And the reason I realized why is because being a middle child, being neglected, being the errand boy, my father was furious when his elder brothers told him, no, we're not going to pay for your educational fee so you get certificate education, because he was very ambitious. He was nice looking. He may have been dark skinned, but his features were very, very, very good looking. And I always say this, I have my father's nose. And the thing is, my father got really angry one day when he went to his elder brothers and he said, hey, brothers, I'm now 16. I'm not getting proper education because in Bangladesh, it's not enough just to buy books. You're supposed to have a tutor who then helps you understand and get through the government books. And it's a nightmare. You also have to pay for exam fees, for book fees, tuition, because learning in the schools in Bangladesh is just by rote and they just beat you if you don't get the answer right. That's why a lot of Bangladeshis, even to this day, although I think capital punishment isn't allowed, but I don't know, they actually get tutors. Well, when my father went to his brothers and he said, I want money and I need to sit these exams, they were like, no, Muquith, no, Makhon. We need you to help us because we have a plan. We have a plan that will see these brothers and our family get to the top, and we can't afford because we have all the education we need now. Okay, that's what the elder brothers told him. All right. And in doing so, my father got so angry, and that soon, while he was disgruntled and with gritted teeth, he had to be the errand boy, fetching, running, doing crappy tasks, doing the shopping. He didn't want any of that. When somebody offered him an opportunity to come to London, and by this time it was the late 50s, he took it. He basically, behind their backs, because he was so sick and tired, and, you know, it's true, you take the such siblings for granted, don't you? because soon they were like, we're the elder brothers, we're rescuing the family, we're going to make it, we're working hard, you guys have to be the foundation, or the you know, wings behind, wind beneath our wings, to actually get this family out of this mess left because father died when we were very young. My father basically said boo sucks to that, took the first opportunity presented by someone who actually really liked him, who actually my father would go out, and he was very popular in his village because he would play cricket. So they'd say that he was very devoted to his mother. His mother would try and console him and say, hey baba, which means sweetie, listen, just don't rock the boat, I know. And he'd say, but ma, ma, they used to call them ma, it's not fair. And he used to be deprived, they wouldn't get pocket money. Do you see, it's really hard if you're very, very ambitious, you're charming, you've got charisma, and your brothers want to use you as an errand boy because they're busy doing the big man stuff. So when he actually got the chance to come to London, he did. And he kind of like slipped away. And I can tell you now, his brothers were really shocked because they said, you're mad. You're mad to go to London when we need you. And he said, I'm going. And he did. And he arrived into London, and with hardly a penny in his pocket, and immediately began to look for a job. And he worked, I believe, first only very briefly as a mechanic at the Luton factory, which had, I think, British Leyland. I think he was working for British Leyland. So that's my father, all right? And what I want you to know is there are very debonair pictures of my father in his suit. When he came, he was in his, youngest, most, unmarried stage. And he was forever in these pictures, very smart, with some of the friends he made in London, the first generation of Siletis, although Siletis had been coming to London for several decades, I think even from the 19th century, because of the maritime connection. They used to work on ships. All right. So that's my father. My mother, and I'll skip to how they met and everything, but all you need to know is, do you remember I told you that my father and his brothers, they all married really well. Now, what does married really well? It wasn't money. No. One of the most prized currency, okay, first of all, was money and being fair. So let me tell you what the pecking order is. If you have money, status, good ancestry, and you are fair, basically you are a girl or a daughter who has won the lottery. You can actually go straight in and marry. Okay, I wouldn't call it royalty, but you're looking into military, civil service, all these kind of eligible. It was like the equivalent of Pride and Prejudice, but the brown Silleti version. Mothers, fathers would be on the hunt and desperately losing sleep as to how to get their daughters married off, especially if she was dark skinned and she didn't have access to wealth. If she was dark skinned and poor, she was literally screwed. Okay, literally screwed, unless of course her brothers would sponsor her and she could belong on the back of her family. So one day I'll show you the flow chart, okay, of the positions. So there is likelihood for a dark-skinned girl to be a bit higher than a fair-skinned bride if she has more access to wealth, okay? Because people do rate wealth more than fair skin. It's just that they want wealth and fair skin, okay? If it's wealth, it will always be wealth first, okay, and then it will be the skin color. All right, okay. But if the groom, I don't know if any of you are with you, yeah, so someone like my father, he would be in the middle, so he's not really going to get the opportunity to marry someone who's really rich with white skin. But they did find him a very white skinned bride, my mother. She looks like a Russian doll. I've never met anyone, maybe a couple of people in my life, who is so white. She's like as white as, she's just really white. I used to stare at my mother's skin and think, how is it possible? Okay, so we're just coming to the first 30 minutes, all right, of my memoirs. But my mother was also born to a family where she was left with her widowed mother, and again a family of 15 a lot of boys, and there were just four sisters, I believe. Okay, four sisters, and when they were little, their father died. And on the flip side, my mother also suffered a lot of torture, because then my uncle, her eldest brother, had his sisters, and the woman who was cruel to her was my uncle's wife, who could not stand the sight of her sister-in-laws, and plotted and did everything she could to make their life a living hell. And it might be why many of you, I said to you I would talk about my mother only in my memoirs. I don't have a good relationship with her. I haven't seen her for 5 years. And the last time I saw her, I got fed up of her. And this is coming with a trigger warning. And I will put this trigger warning. Please, if you are upset or triggered by mentions of violence, but my mother never liked me because of my dark skin. And also, she really, really struggled because she didn't like the fact that she had been married off. And she did suffer a lot of cruelty and torture at the hands of her sister-in-law, who would beat her, deprive her. And she used to tell us stories when we were young children, which is inappropriate, I know, because I've taken therapy and I didn't know. But, you know, she would be deprived of food. She would be forced to actually sometimes have her periods without getting the help she needed. She would actually starve so she could feed her two sisters. And she was very and could be loving, but she grew up obsessed with her brothers, because being in that kind of toxic culture, the brothers were never unkind. When they saw her, they would give her little crumbs of affection, saying, "My mother's name is Rushna. How are you, Rushna? What's happening?" Right? So she would find some comfort and affection from her brothers. The problem is, at home, the brothers, my uncles were out, and it would be run by the sister-in-laws. But the eldest sister-in-law was very wicked and would beat and torture them on such a level, and they weren't really allowed to talk about it. So that's my mother, Rushon Ara. Okay, very pretty, like a doll. But now that I'm scene setting, okay, and this is my memoirs, a reminder, I'm Yasmin Choudhury, I'm 51, I'm doing my memoirs. I want to talk about how life was like being born into first generation immigrant couple from Sylhet, Bangladesh. And in doing so, how I found my life go crazy, because today I'm at war with this entire community. I am actually disowned and I'm utterly disconnected, and I'm fighting for my inheritance and the legacy left by my beloved father. But anyway, that's my father and mother, and a little quick brief insight into the culture and family they grew up in. Because my father, I think, was born in the 30s, and my mother would have been born in 47. Okay, so there they are. And I want to now, because we'll be zipping all over the place, I want to fast forward to the 1970s when I was born. So I was born in St. George's Hospital. I was a twin. I was we were our mother's third pregnancy. The first pregnancy she had, and I look back at the trauma my mother suffered, a stillborn son. And as you can imagine, she carried it to full term. And there would not have been much help for women, especially of a ethnic background, who didn't really know English, having to carry her child. And then, because of a doctor's negligence, the baby, when it came out, had the cord around its neck, and actually, sadly, it was a son. My brother died, and she never got over that. Her next pregnancy was my eldest sister, who is now a British solicitor, and her name is Nazmin Choudhury of NC Law. She is 4 years older than me, so she was born in 1966, and she, for 4 years, reigned supreme as the apple of my father and mother's eyes. Then, of course, because remember, after having lost their firstborn, they would have been grateful for this child. I think they would have seen it as a miracle child. And it's often when I take the time to sit and think quietly to try and understand why my family is so monstrous today, I look back at the patterns and try and figure out how and why they made some of the choices and why I'm at war with them and why are they so different to me. Because if you are a child, and remember, by the time my sister was born, I want you to know something. My father was very, very integrity led. He refused to take a penny in benefits. He made it very clear, I've come to London. I will now work. I will save up money. I will help my mother back in Bangladesh, my widowed mother. I will start sponsoring my brothers and supporting them financially, given that they did not agree with me coming to London, UK. And in doing so, once I'm established and I've got my own place, my own property, my own business, that's when I will bring any wife over. Okay? So what I want you to know is, having arrived in the late 50s, within a few years, he rapidly climbed up and away from the British Leyland car plant in Luton. He began very furiously, and I'll talk about this, the introduction to Mr. Dealey, his bank manager. And I've got the letters between the two of them even to this day. And it's the most sweetest, craziest relationship that makes me so happy, because it reminds me of me and Gandalf, the nickname I give to my white atheist business mentor who found me when I was having a very hard time and I'd been left homeless and in dire straits in 2015. But I want to go back to my father. And there he is in the early 60s now, still furiously saving up money, going to British Leyland. There's pictures of him in his overalls. I think he would have been very popular. He would have charmed everyone. He blended in, he wore suits. I've got a feeling he probably dated English girls, because later on in life, when he became pious, he would be forever talking about cutting, no cutting. Men are very, 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 very dangerous. Yeah. When a man is cutting a woman, a lady, you have to be very careful, right? This is not for you, Baba, right? We do not do dating, no cutting. That's what he would say in these family lectures. But I know for a fact, because once he slipped up, when he was talking about his heydays and said, you're not going dancing, are you? And I said, how do you know about dancing? And then he had that guilty look. And in the 50s, I bet you he was taking white girls, because he was at a British Leyland car factory. I have got no proof, but he would have kept that side of him quiet because his religiousness came later. And I don't judge my father at all. I love the idea of thinking of my father twirling some pretty lady who was white, who was kind to him, around the dance floor somewhere in London, and him being all slicked with his hair, his slim tie, his suits, because that's what they used to wear, suits all the time. Outside of work, when they were going out, they would only ever wear suits. It was a bit like Mad Men, okay, in London. You should all watch it. And I love the idea that he probably fell in love or maybe he dated and he said, I will never be able to marry you. And maybe he broke a lot of girls' hearts, because when I did used to ask him how, he'd have this little secret smile, and it would always be in the corner of his mouth, and it would be a wry smile. And my father was very bad at lying, because one of the greatest things about him is he was always stern, but when he smiled, I felt the whole world was awash with sunshine, because he would just look at you and his eyes would sparkle, even as he got older, and he had a very, very strict Orthodox life, and he was forever going on about praying, namaz. When you would disarm him, he couldn't lie. He'd just suddenly laugh like that. And then and he'd be like this, huh? Right? He'd be like a child. And I'd be looking and saying, oh my God, you're my father. You're so strict. But suddenly I see it now. I see how mesmerizing, how dangerous you would have been to men and women alike. And no wonder Mr. Dealey, the bank manager, gave you your first loan to set up your own, take a partnership in a restaurant called Hamza. So my father soon left British Leyland, saved up, and he went into partnership at a restaurant called Hamza. I'm going to go digging and see if I can find Hamza. Hamza was in Earl's Court. It was a very, very prime property, and him and his friends opened a curry house there. But soon he didn't enjoy it, because I'm telling you, my father was very driven. He was like, I did British Leyland, don't like working for someone else. I've done this curry house now. I'm in partnership. I don't want to do business with anyone. I want my own kingdom. And soon, while he was at Hamza, the restaurant, I never know why they called it Hamza. He went abroad in the early 60s, I think, and got married out there. Because imagine he would have returned to the Bangladesh with a British residency, and by this time, the uncles were slowly doing all right, but what they were looking for was now connection and building up ancestry by getting my father married, who was now rich, young, eligible, but they married my father off. Are you ready for this? They had a woman lined up, but apparently the marriage talk fell through. And on the day that my father was supposed to go and marry someone else, he ended up marrying my mother. And I think that was to actually be the setting for a lot of trauma between my mother and father, because I believe that my mother was told that day, go and get changed, and basically all the shopping done for one bride. They then quickly ran around and they found my mother, and they said, you're getting married to Rushna, the daughter of Misali in Ronikail. That is in Gulafganj in Sylhet. And my mother did tell me that that day elders came to her and said, get dressed. And she said, why? I want to play with my dolls. And they said, no, you're getting married. We need to get you married. Now, I've often thought about that and the trauma my mother would have faced in being told there and then, you're getting married. Because do you know what? I think behind this was that disgusting woman, that BITCH. And I will go there. Because guess what? Nobody talks about it, because this woman who was cruel and tortured my mother, do you know what was really weird? Decades later, whenever she would see me, is it my Happy? By the way, my nickname in my family is Happy. Nobody knows me as Yasmin. Is it my Happy? Have you come? Hello, sweetie. And do you know what? I'd just be looking at her and scowling. And I hated her with every cell in my body, because when I was young, I was my mother's daughter. I would follow her everywhere and do anything I can to get her approval, because she was the one often we were all left with at home because my father was busy. Okay. I was so hungry for affection and attention. And you know what? As much as I was messed up, the idea that this woman, I remember once screaming and screaming and saying to my father, how dare you take me to that woman's house? Because years later, you should have seen, she's turned on the charm for my father. And my father, God, we'll talk about that another time, he was always so forgiving. He just couldn't hold a grudge. He could not hold a grudge. He would hold a grudge, and he will continue to do so. And he has that grudge before he died against my brother-in-law. Okay, and we'll talk about that. But I'm going all over the place, and I'm conscious that the time is running out, and I do have to take questions and answers. But here's the thing. My father got married to my mother. Both of them didn't know and see each other until the day they met as husband and wife. Both of them were told who to marry. Both of them had no agency over who they married. And there you've got my father, who's probably in his mid-20s now, and I believe my mother would have been 14. I know it's shocking, but that's what happened. We have to go there. And I don't want anyone blaming my father, because you've got to remember, in those cultures, in those families, the brothers would arrange the marriage. Okay. And I find it hilarious that all of them were so religious that soon they started growing beards and saying Allah, Allah, but at no point did they read the Quran and understand that at no point is a Muslim woman ever allowed to marry anyone without her express consent. And no, it can't be forced or coerced, or she really said yes. It's got to come from her heart, because I believe Allah knows everything. So there you have it. They've got married, but my father kept my mother out in Bangladesh because he went abroad. They decided to get him married, didn't marry the woman that they thought he was going to marry. Okay, I think she was wealthy. I think she was rich. I think she was very pretty, but ended up with my mother, who was very pretty but no wealth. Okay, but in return, in a way, they promised my father, saying, we will back you up and you will now enter our family. And there's all these brothers, and look at all the land that, because one thing what you don't know is my mother belonged to a very rich landowning family. Okay, of course, she's never got a penny of it. And I suspect it was all done to just try and get rid of my mother, because her sister-in-law, the wicked witch, as I call her, just did not want her at home anymore. I have an imagination where she said, "Get that girl away, get her away from under my feet. I can't have her. We need to get her married off." And so her mother was still alive, had no power, because a widowed mother has less power than a brother. In Sylheti culture, a mother only has power as long as the father is alive. When she becomes a widow, and depending on her son, if her son then runs the entire clan, because it's very tribal, with his wife by his side, she then takes the head of the family. Because, as you know, in my culture, women suddenly, when they've lost their husband, they've lost everything. They wear white. They're suddenly like, "Oh, I can't. I'm a widow. I'm a widow." You will never see widows going out again. They kind of like going around in life, because there's a part of that stigma, which is, you don't have a husband. What did you do to make your husband die before you? Why didn't you die first? Yeah. So it's like the guilt of being left behind by your husband and as a widow, and understanding that when it comes down to the economics, you are not as important as the father, the husband, father figure, who is the head of the clan. It's like you're without leadership. It's like a ship in a storm with no captain. Okay. So therefore, you then rescue it, because if the son married well, the wife would come in and she would rule the roost. Okay. So my Nunny, my maternal grandmother, and that's the word we use, would have been at the mercy of this wicked witch, her daughter-in-law, as would be the three sisters. Okay. Some of them were very young. So, for example, my sister was called Rushna. My other auntie, who I do love and I want to go and see her, is called Recha. She's really nice. She's a hothead. And the youngest one was called Jilu. So you had Rushna, Recha, and Jilu, and I can't remember what their eldest sister was called. Eshu. Was it Eshu? I think she was called Eshu. I can't remember. Anyway, we've got 15 minutes, but this is an introduction to my life, and the fact that I think it's important when you're writing memoirs to actually set the scene and understand the complexity of the kind of family I grew up in, and how today it is really sad that I don't have any connections with any of my clan, who number now 200 plus. Because if you see on my mother's side, there's 15 of them. On my father's side, there's 16 of them, or 15. If on average, each 15 siblings has another minimum five children, can you imagine how many cousins I've got on both sides? I think I once counted it. Probably I've got 400 or 300 first cousins. Okay. Now these cousins, obviously my age, yeah, their Generation X, would have had their children. So now the clan has expanded. But what you've got to remember about families like mine, although we're Muslim, although it's nothing to do with Islam, the ancestral land rights, the bloodline, is very, very central to this story. And what that means is you are defined by your blood and your family name. So even to this day, when I go to Bangladesh, constantly, where's your father's village? Because that's how they place you. They have no interest in their mother's village, because they believe, as was the tribal tradition, when a woman marries, she leaves her paternal family and she transfers across as property to be owned by her husband. So my father in 60s had that Hamza restaurant. Soon he comes across Mr. Dealey. I'm fast tracking the characters. So Mr. Dealey is the next person you're going to meet. So lovely, so educated, so middle class. And the two of them hit it off, an incredible relationship. And before you know it, Mr. Dealey has lent my father money to open his own restaurant, which he does in 1966, which is called Nazmin's, because my mother came over while he was a partner at Hamza. She would have had a baby, lost it. Then she had my sister in 1966. And that's when my father also opened Nazmin restaurants and named it after my sister. And that restaurant goes strong today, still in Earlsfield, London, SW18. The property deeds have been stolen by my brother, and he now has them in his name because my father left it in his name, saying that make sure you look after it for all the family, but my brother didn't do that. So the title deeds, if you go to Land Registry, and it's 398A Garrett Lane, there is a 3-bedroom freehold flat above that and a restaurant. And it was in the 1970s, that after my sister was born, Nazmin was running between 1966 and until we moved out, the late 1970s, I lived in and atop a curry house. And that curry house would define me many times over. It was cramped, it was awful. When I arrived as a set of twins, it was already after 4 years of my elder sister ruling the roost as the apple of my mother and father's eye. And soon, I guess we were neglected as twins because there's no value for girls. My father never, always loved us. Okay, I promise you this. My father was so lovely. He never ever distinguished in his love between his girls and his boys. He always started crying. And my father, I could do an impersonation. And he'd say, Mom, Papa, Papa, khulja fatisa, Papa khulja sole, tumra haina amar furi shop shoman. And he would do this. And what that is translated as, my sons and daughter, my son and my daughters are the same. I love them so much, it hurts my liver. And he used to get really upset if we didn't eat a meal, because he'd always say, did you know, if you don't eat but a pound of my flesh lessens overnight, basically he's wasting away for love for us. So in the 1970s, there we are, and I will pick up again with my memoirs. But 1970, I was born, and then very quickly, May 1970, I was born with my twin, and I've got the letter that Mr. Dealey sent saying, congratulations on the birth of your twin daughters. It's old-fashioned. I've got all those letters. But then the following year, can you imagine? My mother gave birth, and this is where it got interesting. She gave birth to her first son. And I think after that, my mother never looked back, because in November 1971, Nazmin Choudhury, nicknamed Mintu, was born to great adulation. It was like something out of Lion King. The crying, the weeping, oh my God, we have a son. Because my father was walking around as the father of 3 girls. He was by then, in the 1970s, very successful, very rich. And everyone was saying, but where's the boy? There's no point you having daughters. Your daughters are going to get married and they're going to leave you. So there's no point, Makhon, Muquith. There's no point. There is no point. And I know secretly my father was panicking because he was also stockpiling land, who was also sponsoring and now financially so successful that his brothers, who he had run away from, were now sort of like, hey, Muquith, maybe you want to join in this conversation, or Muquith, maybe you want to be a partner in this project, or Muquith, we've got this problem in this family. And they played to his ego. And before you knew it, my father was soon to slowly take over the mantle of leading the family, because above all, wealth counts, and he had the money, and the elder brothers knew it. And so there was to be a chasm between my father and these elder brothers, because they looked at this little pipsqueak who had disappeared, who wouldn't be their errand boy, and now he's made it, and he's now the owner of a restaurant. He now has a son, and he is now making his mark to become, probably in his eyes, the most successful Sileti ever. Because here's the other thing he told and announced everyone. I don't have any intentions of my daughters being stay-at-home mothers. I'm going to say something. He actually despised, I think the relationship was so awful between my mother and him. He was like, oh my God, I can't bear the idea of my daughters being at the mercy of any man, so I'm going to educate them. And he made it very clear, you will get married, but you will also be educated, and I'm not having you staying at home and being a housewife. And so that is the introduction just to my family. In terms of the memoir and, this series I'm doing, today, 2022, let's go back to the present now. Today, I remain utterly disconnected, utterly, having lost my way in my 30s from Islam, having been born atop a curry house. Well, I was born in St. George's, but you know what I mean, raised, having suffered racism, having been a twin. It's been really hard. And it's funny, I thought I'd start crying, but I'm going to leave you with this. My father died heartbroken. My father died betrayed. Today it is down to me, Yasmin Choudhury, as the only child of his, to resurrect and rescue the legacy of my father, because people are dragging it through the mud. Today, I've lost complete control of all my father's assets, and it's been seized by my male cousins, as well as my elder sister, who is in cahoots. And my elder sister is Nazmin Choudhury of NC Law, and she is an expert on conveyancing and property law. And it's interesting, isn't it, that today she is running the entire Bangladeshi estate. Meanwhile, my brother, Nazmul Hassan Choudhury, who is married to Reema Rofe, who is the founder of Chit Chat Pans, CHIT space chat, CHAT space Pans, PANS. I am going to end this introduction by telling you all that I have issued on the lovedesh.com website an invitation for a global family summit to go to my 200 plus clan members right across Bangladesh, in Sylhet, to Sweden, to America, to London, right across to every single person, because they all know what's happened to me. And I'm bringing evidence and invited them to a pre-Valentine's Day summit, because for 15 years they've been torturing me, poor people. They've gone out of control. They are like the wannabe Trump Brown family. They trample over people. People have died on their watch. And I'm now saying to my family in chapter 1 tomorrow at 9 p.m. GMT on my YouTube, on my Twitter, hopefully my TikTok, I will be extending, as part of my memoirs, a personal invitation addressing my family in Sylheti and in Bengali to say to them, you are coming and being invited on the 13th of February at 11:36 a.m. Sunday. Any member of the public who wishes to attend can do so by booking tickets at lovedesh.com. Just go to the events section on the menu and you will see all the videos that I've stacked up. I already have Justice for Yasmin banned, which I suspect was done by my family, because I am now declaring war on the Ali Nagar Chowdhuries, and it starts with Nazmin Choudhury Parvin, Enamul Haq Choudhury Enam, the brother-in-law who has seized control of my father's assets, and my father always told me, don't ever let that man come near us or my assets, and he's done that after cheating my father. We also have an invitation going to Nazmul Choudhury Mintu, who hides away, but if you all Google, okay, if you all Google real burger, you will find that Channel 4 did a documentary on my brother, and you will see my father in that documentary, because Channel 4 picked him as a future entrepreneur. But of course he's done sod all, because what you don't know is behind the scenes, us sisters were helping him. He got financial help, emotional help, he had no bills to pay, and then he went and lost it all, okay? Meanwhile, I'm the chief executive of Lovedesh. I've not gotten any help, and they destroyed my charity and Lovedesh projects in 2015. How? Why? You'll find out a bit more tomorrow. The next person on my siblings is my twin sister, Yasmin Choudhury. Yes, she is a head teacher. She's actually an advisor to the Metropolitan Police, and I will leave you with some details. She was the one who reported me to the Metropolitan Police last year. She used her contacts and falsely reported me to try and get me into trouble with the Met Police, because Gingerbread, the British charity, appointed her as a vice chair trustee. And then when I went to them to give evidence how she's been violent, she assaulted not just me and beat me up and punched me in the head and left me with black eyes, but she actually assaulted my daughter at the age of what? My daughter would have been 6, okay? But because I was so scared of my family back then, I wasn't the woman I am. I didn't go to police. She also had 2 daughters who I knew would be taken into social care. And, you know, she was a very loving mother. But just because she's a loving mother to her children doesn't mean she's a right and she's not able to be toxic, because people don't understand. Toxicity can also be chosen toxicity, which is, this is my dominion. I won't touch these people because they I like, but anyone I don't like, I'll be brutal. And it might explain why I'm calling out and naming my family. So that's Yasmin Choudhury. She's divorced, a single mother. She had an arranged marriage, and I spent most of my life protecting her. I've got 2 minutes. Then we come to my younger sister, Nazmin Choudhury Shilpi, who has blocked me on Instagram. If you Google Nazmin Choudhury using my surname, you'll know that there was some talk of her writing the next Rami Malek movie. She's very successful in Hollywood. She's blocked me on Instagram. But between my siblings and my brother-in-law, because they are at the heart of it all, and my mother, who is completely complicit in domestic abuse by allowing and permitting my brother to become a monster, the Lovedesh 10 Plus files is how the 10 years of trying to create Lovedesh as a 51-year-old woman, and the pain, the trauma of it all. So thank you for the introduction. A reminder, you can go to www.yasminchoudhury.com, and that I will be uploading the audio to be going out as a podcast. And secondly, this introduction will be available as part of a series in my YouTube account called the Lovedesh 10 Plus Files. And so I thank you, and I hope if you wish to support me, care for me, I don't want donations. There it is. Please, please, please visit www.lovedesh.com to support. That's from ages ago. I don't want you to donate. Just buy our products and just help and go and buy the ticket to the public summit, which I will tell you about tomorrow. And there ends the introduction. Thank you so much. I'm now going to spend time with my TikTok fam, and I'm going to take questions and answers 30 minutes. All right. So here they are. I don't ever show who they are, but hello everyone. I'm back to my TikTok fam, and until midnight, if you've got any questions, please put them in the question box and I will take them. And I'm going to be very strict with time because I'm going to go to sleep at midnight. Okay. So here we go. Questions coming in. So we've got a Q&A session after every single episode of my memoirs. Okay. Right? So can you all let me know what questions, please? And I want you all to know that I've done it from the top of my head. And I don't know if you can see, but I'm sweating. So can you put it in the question box? Because I want to be fair, and I'm going to be very, very strict. Anyone, I want to say thank you to my moderators, by the way. I know who they are. I'm not going to name them, but I want to thank you. So let's start with the questions without, here we go. Muquith is the name of my father, the sustainer, and he certainly sustained his family. He fulfilled the legacy that he set out to do, and I plan to be Muquith's daughter, sustaining his legacy. Okay, next question. What is the most hurtful part of all of this? So thank you for that question. I'm not going to name anyone who gave me the questions because it's better, because I'm about to enter a very dangerous period and I don't need anyone to know who's listening to this. So I've had a question from a listener. What is the most hurtful part of all of this? It's very hard for me to identify the most hurtful, but I think because it's so complicated that at some point I'm going to have to do a map. Is it the impact on my daughter and how they've been cruel to her, and the fact that mother and daughter were separated in boarding school in order to keep her safe because I found out what they were doing to other people, and therefore I lost my daughter temporarily? And anyone who's been a parent or anyone who's been a daughter and had a loving mother, I want you to imagine Amber being 13 and then me turning around, and while she's crying and clinging to me, having to put her into boarding school with the help of charities who funded it all. I did not pay one penny. Or is it the fact that my father, Alhaj Abdul Muquith Choudhury, AMC, and if there's one thing I want you all to do is protect my father and understand the fact that today, the very man who cheated him, who groomed my sister, my brother-in-law Enam, hobbies, swore he is a pig. I will go there. I don't care, I'm a chief executive. You don't know what Enam has done. Enam today is controlling my father's estate, but he did nothing to earn it, and he's just been on his backside and taken money from my sister. He married into a wealthy family. My father and everyone sponsored him because his father died when he was young. He was the son of Golden Sussa, uncle. because Shuna Sasa was really loved by everyone and he was quite philanthropic. When he died, leaving his children, his daughters, and he only had 2 sons. And I now want to tell you, my greatest tragedy is that my father's assets is being touched by that pig. And that pig has been told by me to get out of my father's lands. He is staying there, he's using it, but guess what? He was also in 2015 responsible for destroying Lovedesh and all my charity projects. And him and my cousins have refused to allow me to run AMC Ariza, named after my grandmother, the widow, and my father, AMC, the charity. They destroyed it all in 2015, and now they're running it, and I don't get any of it. I have no control. So it's between those two, I guess. I don't know. I've got so many. Or is it what's been done to my Rana Plaza victims by fashion charities? It's complicated. Next question. Where's my questions? Will you repost this? Yes, I will repost this. This is now available on YouTube, okay? And it will be available on my podcast. And that podcast, all of that information will be available on my TikTok and yasminchoudhury.com and lovedesh.com, okay? So subscribe, and there'll be a special playlist called the Lovedesh 10 Plus Files in order, so that you can sometimes listen to it, yeah? If you want to sit down and listen to some music, so you can take the audio from that. Or there's going to be, and that's why I need to raise money, so please, please help me by buying products, booking tickets so I can pay, because I have got a disability, a team to actually help me extract the audio and put it as a podcast. All right. And I already have a podcast, and all of this is coming. So it will be available on yasminchoudhury.com. There will be a link saying podcast. All right. How is your mother reacting to what you are planning? I don't know. I don't talk to her, and I have no contact with her since 2015. It's as simple as that. And I have no care for what she thinks. Let's go back to some of the questions, because there's questions. Hang on. Okay, do not disturb. Why are your siblings not in contact? My siblings are not in contact with me because they ghost me, and they know I possess evidence that is so compelling that they will probably find all their professional lives, their entire names cancelled, because of the evidence I have of how they bully, how they cheat, they lie, they undertake fraud, and they hurt not just me and Amber, but also the poorest communities in Bangladesh. So, for example, yeah, if I was to show you, because tomorrow I'll be going into detail with about my siblings, so I suggest you come back for that at 9 p.m. All right, tomorrow. I would suggest you come back and listen, because I'll be showing on this pictures on YouTube, and it might be that you go and follow my YouTube now, because on YouTube I can show pictures through the streaming device. I have a family map of their names and faces. Okay, so don't forget to support and buy products from Lovedesh if you want to keep me safe, please. Honestly, some of the cheapest things there is the £11 ticket to the Global Summit. Even if they don't turn up, I will be there. I promise you. Okay, please, because here's the thing. I can't do this on air. I might need protection. I might need, I don't know, like right now, my car's a bit broken. I might need suddenly a hotel room that I need to escape to, because what you don't know is I literally have nobody. It's just me and Amber. We have no one we can go to. There's nobody. There's nobody we can go to. Right, next question. Let's have a look. Can you also, oh God, come on. Right. Oh God, there's so many questions. I will try and, how do you feel your family let you down? That's very complex, but they let me down in every single way. As a sister, as a daughter, as a mother, as a human being. They've tortured me, they've beaten me, they've kept my wages, they've kept my assets, they've denied me, deprived me. They had me working at the age of 13 in a cellar. I was the only one on an industrial sewing machine. So when people think I'm fighting for my inheritance, no. What you don't know is inheritance is that assets left by your father. Now it gets complicated, because another episode I will just focus on inheritance. But my father Do you remember? Because of the focus on men, left all the wealth in my brother's name, expecting my brother to look after us. Because he always promised me, that's why you're contributing. I used to pay, I used to use my wages, I helped my brother, I set up his business, I've done so much. But today, my brother has not even bought one Eid present for my daughter. When Amber asked him, saying, Uncle, I don't want to be in debt. I don't want interest. Could you just help me? Can we access my mother's inheritance so that I don't have to go into debt? He did not help. So that's, I mean, I could be here forever. So just join my memoirs. I'll keep it at that. All right. Let's have a look. Please, can someone say to people to follow Yasmin is Yasmin 51? What was the name of your brother's documentary? So you can go and look up Real Burger World. And if someone, can you test it? If you Google Naz Choudhury and Real Burger World, it will be called Risking It All. Risking It All. You will see me with very blonde hair leading a promotion to promote my brother's restaurant. The proof is all there. He can't. This is why I'm going to take the Nazmin restaurant. I'm going to take all of it. They're not allowed to have any of it because that's going to be damages. Okay. Next question. God, there's so many. Family reaction to a white dude. That will be the chapter around Amber's father. I will be showing pictures of Amber's father. I will actually be telling you who and what happened. And quite frankly, if he ends up looking at this and listening to this, tough. I gave you several opportunities. I'm talking now to Amber's father. And you know what? You did not do right by me. Forget me, but your daughter. And I'm now coming forward with my story. So that's a whole separate chapter. Okay? Of the reaction and the pain and the struggle I had. Okay? Next. Oh gosh, so many. What's the time? We've got 10 minutes left. How long have you been fighting justice for? Probably when I woke up. I've been fighting justice, I would say, from Friday, 12th of January, 2012. That date is specific. Come back and remind me to explain why is that date so specific? Why? Why is that date so specific? Because that's the day when I woke up and it was like horror, like discovering, like Harry Potter, that my brother was really evil. Okay? I remember that day to this day, and I registered Lovedesh that same day because I was so scared because I realized he would never look after me nor my daughter, and I had to take control of my own future and look after my daughter. Okay? Here we go. Next question. How come your mom didn't stand by you? Because she doesn't love me and she doesn't believe that daughters need to inherit wealth, even though she's a devout, pious woman. She refuses. And one of her last comments to me when I last saw her 5 years ago screaming is that she's going to go to her grave arguing with God because she doesn't believe women should inherit. Because you know what? Yes, it is right. My son should inherit everything. You daughters, why should you get anything? So she just doesn't like me and she can't stand me. And she's actually tortured me. She was horrible and I have nothing. I don't feel anything for her anymore. So she doesn't stand by me because she doesn't like me. And there's lots of toxic, abusive mothers. It is not the brown community. It happens in white community, black community, traveller community, Irish community. It is not exclusive. It's just some women should never have had children and are too, generational trauma back in those days are not equipped to be mothers. Next question. We've got 10 minutes, people. I'm really sorry. How do you feel estranged from your maternal family? Nothing. I'm really happy. I celebrate on a daily basis. How do I feel estranged from my maternal family? Happy. I am happy and I can't stand them. Okay? I don't want them anywhere near them. And my greatest dream is to take them down and have every single one of them have their professional careers cancelled, because that is the damage and compensation I deserve for what they did to me. And that includes those who weren't proactive but knew about it and didn't come to help me or turned a blind eye. You're just as complicit. There you go. Next question. Would you resent your mom even when she was abused? Yes, of course. But sadly, I also loved her. Today, it's different. When you're a child, the question is, would you resent your mom even when she was abused? Yes, because there's no excuse. Because just because someone, Like, we'll talk about paedophilia. A lot of abusers today were, in fact, victims themselves abused by paedophiles. But does that mean, ooh, boo hoo, cry me a river, you go and hurt someone else? They're weak, they're pathetic, and they turned inwards. So that's why you get bullies who often have a toxic background. I have no empathy. Okay. I can explain it, it explains it, but it doesn't excuse it, because I was tortured. I don't go around hurting people, and I don't want to hear that. I have no. So here we go. Next one. Oh, so many messages. Oh God. Are you fearful for exposing your family? It's hard. Yeah, it is a risk. Am I fearful for exposing my family? Yes, because they've set lawyers on me, issued me with legal threats. They've made me homeless. They financially ruined me. They've destroyed. And one of the things is they'll go after the people that I care about in Bangladesh, because they won't touch me. They're actually terrified a bit now, because they're like, oh, she's not the same old Yasmin. She's not that doormat Yasmin that nobody will believe her. She's now a CEO. She's won awards. She's verified on Twitter. She's got a loyal community. Things are very different to the way it was 5 years ago, because I never used to talk publicly about me. I thought I was going to be one of those who would do my work secretly, and I wasn't there doing it for fame. I just wanted to work and do and restore my father's legacy. I never wanted to be in the public eye. I only wanted to be in the public eye as an actress. It's funny how life works out, and why I do believe that Allah blessed me to become an actress, because by being an actress, I've got my presentation skills. But I will receive threats, so it is very serious. I have been doxxed. I've had all kinds of things, and I told you my own twin sister reported me to the Met Police. So if you want to support me, please buy a Lovedesh products, or buy the ticket to the family summit, or just buy my beauty book, which, by the way, is here. I'll talk about this, but I've done a beauty book. Being 51, you can buy this on the lovedesh.com website via Amazon. All right, it's £16.66. I keep £8. So there you go. Next question. We've got 5 minutes left. How did you obtain evidence without them knowing? It wasn't that, because the arrogance is, and this is a brilliant question. I love this question. This is one of my favorite questions. How did you obtain evidence? Because they thought I was stupid. They thought I was stupid. So therefore, they left things lying around, because I was always the very, very servile, indentured servant of a daughter, sister. I'll help you. I'll do this. I'll drive you. I'll write for you. Yeah? Oh, what's that? Nothing. Oh, okay. I was dumb. I was dumb. I was stupid. So they used to leave me, because it's like, oh, we don't care. She doesn't know anything. She's not, she's not clever enough. Yeah? She's just really loving. So I was that loving. It's like, imagine Cinderella mixed with, I don't know, just some kind of cook, cleaner, PA, and then not taking me seriously, because they treated me so stupidly. They didn't even tell me about my father's assets. I didn't know what he had. It was run and managed by my elder sister, my brother, and my brother-in-law. And can you believe the audacity, the disgusting audacity, that my elder sister, when she received £160,000 from a court case my father was fighting, she went to her husband and said, what shall we do with the money? Because she's so backward, and she's so handmaiden's tale. Blessed be the fruit. Okay? I was stupid. So it's a great thing. Are you having therapy to deal with all the trauma? I've had therapy, and I'm in a strong space. So I've had a lot of charities help me. And I want to give a shout out to Vanessa at Focus for One. I want to shout out to Dr. K on the NHS, who actually gave me therapy for 20 intense sessions. I also want to say thank you to Rasask, which is the UK's leading charity for rape and sexual assault. And they're the ones who gave me a therapist for 1 year. And that ran from, the NHS therapy ran from November 2019 until April 2020, when the lockdown came. And then I had, around that time, started, then later in, I think in November 2020, I started my 1 year. Or was it September? That's right, September. I started 1 year. Tuesday night, Rasask, the UK's largest, I'm sure it's the largest, rape and sexual assault charity gave me 1 hour session or 50 minutes with a therapist every week for 1 year, 52 or something. Okay, so I'm okay, and I just need to get it out there. All right, here we are. No, unless they put right. I'm always. Will I ever have? Will I ever forgive them is the question. Do you think you will ever forgive them? Of course, forgiveness. If Allah can forgive, God can forgive. Other people have done worse things have happened to them, and they forgive, for example, the killers of their children. But here's the thing: I am ready to forgive if they put right the wrong done. They don't want to put right the wrong done. I have no forgiveness in me, and I'd rather Day of Judgment take them, because they have an opportunity while they're alive not to suffer in the hereafter, which, as pious Muslims, they either believe or don't believe. So I would much rather, because somebody who was Muslim said, if you can, it is better. Because if you really care for your family, I know why you're fighting, because you don't want them to suffer in the hereafter. And that's what a true Muslim will do. Because when people say, leave it to Allah, leave it to Allah, leave it to Allah, as if Allah is there running some kind of office in tray. Yeah? No. The thing is, you try and sort it out in this lifetime if you can, especially if these are people who are your blood or perhaps have got children. Do you know why? Because those children will become infected. So wake up. These are lazy people who come and say, leave it to Allah. Pray, sister. Sabr. Breathe. Patience. No. No. I'm not going to breathe, and I'm not going to shut up, and I will never forgive them until the Ali Nogar Chowdhury families put right the wrong done, because they are thieves, they're culprits, they're criminals, they are horrible, and they beat up poor people. How can I forgive that? Sorry. Anyway, hang on. Thoughts on changing family name? Never changing my family name. I'm proud of Choudhury, and that's why I'm going to drag it from the ashes like a phoenix, rising from the ashes. And soon they've got an option. Either Choudhury name will be known as Yasmin Choudhury or that Choudhury, or the Ali Nogar Choudhurys. That's why I call it the Ali Nogar Choudhurys. The Choudhury name, I don't call myself Ali Nogar Choudhury. It's just a village. I'm like, make up your mind which Choudhury, but the Yasmin Choudhury will be the Choudhury name. Okay, that's why I keep my name, because I want Choudhurys to feel proud of the Choudhury name. Okay, but if you go and have a look, yeah, Ali Nogar Choudhurys are those identified as coming from that village and have done sodol. Okay, so I will be proud of the Choudhury name, because I need to drag it out of the mud. And for my father died. He only had 2 pairs of shoes. Yeah, and he led a very, very difficult life, and he never had love. And the idea that I'm going to give up everything that my beloved father fought for because that pig, and I'm going to make a bodna, a utensil used to wash your bottom, and I'm going to put Enam's name on it. Yes, I am. I'm selling the Enam bodna on the Lovedesh website, because Enam, the bodna, right, is a piece of shit. I don't give a damn, because at some point I'm sick and tired of people expecting brown and black women to be like, oh, it's not right. You look at Meghan Markle. Look at Meghan Markle. She's been talking about what's been happening to her, and she's really civil, and still she gets hate. So you know what? There is this old English saying, I'm quite English in my heart, because I spent the last 20 years around English people, but also I grew up on the English classics. If you're gonna get hung for a sheep, a lamb, you might as well get hung for a sheep. I repeat, if you're gonna get hung for a sheep, if you're gonna get hung for a lamb, you might as well get hung for a sheep. That is a very old saying in English for poor people, which is, listen, because in those days they used to send people to the gallows if they were caught stealing. And so people say, listen, I'm so starving. What's the point of just getting a lamb? I might as well go for a sheep if they're going to take me down, right? So that's what I'm going to do, all right? I've got nothing to lose, because Enam the Bodna. Hey Enam, Torres anosni rach, tui zelo zaitoibe, tui zelo, tui otoboro hobisbe, gunda, tui gunda, amar sasanam tui dochorsos. You have hurt and destroyed my uncle's name, and you are you wannabe gangster. You're disgusting, and I have no respect, and I'm going to expel you from Ali Nogar. Okay? I have to. I say it's Allah. How do I remain so strong? It's my Islamic faith. I know a lot of Western, white, maybe feminist women don't want to hear that, but it is Islam and my daughter and my TikTok fam now and my mentors. I didn't have my TikTok fam before. That's only a new thing. But usually it's God, Allah, my Quran, me, okay, my daughter who gives me strength, and the people that I fight for, because I always reminded, if I think I've got it bad, it's nothing compared to the stories I'm going to start telling you of the people you're going to meet that I help in Bangladesh, of the woman who was married off to a disabled man because she was so poor, of the woman who actually came and cried to me saying, Yasmin, madam, please help me. They're forcing my daughter to get married and I couldn't rescue her daughter. Okay, there you go. We've got 7 minutes. Are you happy and content? No, I'm not. I'm not happy because there's something burning inside of me. It's like asking Harry Potter, how does he feel? I do think I'm the brown Harry Potter or Daenerys Targaryen. Unless you have been betrayed, it's eating away at you. And I enjoy it. Thank you very much. And I think I look good on it because all these people who say, oh, but relax and oh, let it go. No, I'll be letting, I look even happier when I've let it go. That's when I'll probably age, actually. I'm not content because I will never be content. I will die heartbroken if I don't win this. Okay. Next question. No. Does my sister support me? No. They're against me and they've been fighting me. Two of which, my elder sister made me homeless and Amber homeless during Ramadan in 2015 with the help of all the other siblings. My twin sister last year reported me to the Metropolitan Police falsely because I wrote to the charity who had hired her and told them she's dodgy and she should not be anywhere near single mothers because Gingerbread is a charity. And guess what that they did? She then went and complained about me. And because she advises the Met Police, suddenly they brought me in for questioning. That's how dodgy the Met Police are because my family have contacts. Okay. So no, none of. And as for my younger sister, Nazmin Choudhury, the one in Hollywood, she actually sent me lawyers' letters trying to gag me and telling me she's going to take me to court if I could talk about the family. Well, Nazrin, come on, bring your court case because guess what? I want all of Hollywood and I want everyone, BAFTA to your agents, to cancel you because you are a mean, horrid, wicked, cruel woman. And the fact that you knew I was an actress and you have allowed my acting career to stall while you've been climbing up the greasy ladder in Hollywood. And now I hear, of course, I have no views about my nieces, but you've got one of your daughters into acting, but you've never thought about what impact you've had on my daughter. You're a disgusting disgrace. Oh, it's so good to get it off my chest. Yeah, I'm happier and I'm the happiest I've ever been, even though it's very traumatic. So it's quite complicated. The question I have is, can you say you're happy right now in life? Okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. No, I don't want to be calm. I don't want to be calm. I can be anything I want. So I've got someone saying, "Oh, don't lose it and spoil what has been a great first memoir night." No, because people need to see disability. This is what trauma looks like. I'm not going to hide it from anyone. I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be inauthentic. What do you want me to do? Look and put makeup on and suddenly show, false. This is it. This is real life. This is what it looks like. Yeah. Why should I? Why should I? If I stab you, are you going to say? If I stab you, right? Am I gonna? Do you see? Why is it that when because mental health and what people do to traumatize us is worse? Because actually, a scar doesn't hurt me as much as what they've done, right? It's just blood. Blood will actually heal. If I fall over tomorrow and I'm put in a cast, do you think I sit there crying about the time that I broke my arm? No, no. I want to be real, Eva, because then you know what? There's other women out there I'm doing this for. I'm doing this for other women. Because it's exhausting to keep our composure because people feel it too. Who's it difficult for? If you can't cope seeing my trauma, you should not be listening and reading my memoirs. Okay? In a film, do you think they go through any film you watch? I'm an actress. If everyone's holding on, they show pain. People watch it and start crying. Yeah? When you see the trauma. So when, Andrew Garfield has been going viral because they cut that scene of him crying. Yeah? He loses it. People want that. Not stoic and, oh, I'm going to put a good no, 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 no. That's the only way I can do it. Okay, I've got to go. 3 minutes left. What was your family's reaction getting what? What was your family's reaction getting? I don't know. I didn't understand that. When is the last time you went back? I was in Bangladesh in September 2019. I went twice in 2019. First time over the summer for Amber's 18th birthday. Me and Amber flew out. And then I came back to the UK and flew out September for another event because there was a important fashion event, and then the British High Commissioner Robert Chatterton Dixon, who I'm after as well, who was horrendous to me, and his wife went to one of their do's, and in doing so ended up pitching in a roundabout way to the Bangladeshi government, and Amber then left her university and flew out alone to join me to pitch. So that was the last two times. Please buy from Lovedesh, support Lovedesh. If you want to help me, that's the only way. I don't want donations. Marrying a white male. I don't understand what that means. I don't understand. I've just got someone saying a comment, marrying a white male. Why did you leave Islam? But I've returned to it. I haven't left Islam. I'm actually talking about the period in my life. So the question is, why did you leave Islam? I have not left Islam, in that today I identify as Muslim, but in my 30s I was disconnected, and I refused to pray, and I refused to feel proud or connected, and I did not want to do anything. And I avoided Muslims, and I avoided Islam, and I didn't pray, and I didn't fast, and I had no desire whatsoever to be Muslim. Okay, that's what I mean about the period. What I call is my wilderness years. But now I would say to you, I wasn't rejecting Islam, I was rejecting munafiqism and shirkism and lies given by my Muslim community. But another chapter on that, okay? And I think we've got 1 minute. How many siblings do you have? Sorry, missed that. I've got 4. 3 sisters, 1 brother. I'm a twin, and it's girl, boy, twin girls, then my younger sister. And usually it's 4 years apart from me, the twins, and the brother, and there is 1 year. Okay. And one last question, quick, can we do it? Everyone support Lovedesh charity. Yes, I love that. Okay. Ta-da! That's done. That's brilliant. I will now end this broadcast and thank you and say welcome to the next chapter, chapter 1, right? The Ali Nagar Choudhurys is chapter 1 on 9 p.m. GMT tomorrow at 9 p.m., which will be February the 1st as we kick in. And I want to say thank you very much. And I'm now ending the broadcast. See you soon.